African.
Well, hello and welcome to this very special edition of Wednesday Palaver. This is the second time we are bringing the Palaver to you from the studio, and it's live. We are bringing the Palaver to you from the studio and it's live because of all the constraints that have been imposed on us by Covid-19 and the various restrictive measures. We've decided to bring the program to the studio, and it means that now we have an audience of only 10, when we used to have an audience of about 50. We are bringing the program also to you live. It is not edited, it is raw, it is as it is, and we encourage all of you in your various homes to take an active part in this program. You can do so by sending us WhatsApp messages and text messages on the usual line, and those messages will be read as part of this program. We're exceedingly happy that you have welcomed us into your home, and today we're going to be looking at the economic impact of COVID-19. And we are particularly privileged to have with us in the studios of Pan-African Television a gentleman who has cut a niche for himself in the discussion of financial and economic matters. And I refer to the Honorable Isaac Adongo, Member of Parliament for Bolgatanga Central. He is going to lead a discussion this evening. He's going to give us a presentation of about 20 minutes, and thereafter we would invite the audience to participate by way of asking questions and making comments. It is my pleasure to invite the Honorable Isaac Adongo, NDC Member of Parliament for Bolgatanga Central, to the microphone. And I do this on behalf of the and also Pan-African Television. Honorable, you are welcome to the microphone.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I had this invitation at a short notice, but of course, once it is my own father, I have no choice but to be here. But it is always refreshing to be at Pan-African Television, where I spend quite a lot of time in the formative years, every morning coming here. I've had the opportunity to be on this same platform before, when we used to be at the Freedom Center, and so I'm not a stranger to this platform. Ladies and gentlemen, we all are aware that globally the COVID-19 pandemic is ravaging lives and ravaging economies, and Ghana is not exception. Before COVID-19 arrived, we were already having some challenges with our economy, and we were expecting that even 2021 was going to be a very difficult year for the people of Ghana. I recall in one of my interactions, I had reason to warn His Excellency John Dramani Mahama that in the event that we won the election, which inshallah we would win in 2020, he would have a difficult task of resetting the fiscal framework of our country and to manage the vulnerabilities that have occasioned the mismanagement of our economy over the last 3 years. But ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 incidents of the last couple of months have rather exposed the most challenging aspects of our economy. I say this because before COVID-19, we were struggling to have control over our finances, and I had reason to project that in 2019, only a few days ago, the IMF confirmed that in 2019, our deficit was 7.5%. Of course, that is not good news. But it also revealed that even in 2018, we had a deficit of about 7%. And so consistently from 2018 to 2019, we had moved from 7.5 have a lot of money coming from outside in terms of foreign currency, you needed to build buffers, because then those monies at some point in time will have to leave your economy, because those monies are not yours. And if you have not built enough buffers, when they come calling for their money, you will find that you will not have the currency, and immediately you will begin to see and the vulnerability occurred, where essentially public debt from external $600 million to service and to pay the interest alone. Now, if you don't have the forex that you need to earn to pay this, then of course, when you are in a situation like that, then you have a problem with forex demands on your economy. Apart from that, we also noticed that about 30% of the bonds that we issued in Ghana, which were denominated in cedis and we expected Ghanaians to participate, we had about 30% of that being bought by foreigners. Now, what it meant was that the foreigners were bringing their foreign currency to Ghana, sold them to their banks, took the cedis, and came and bought our cedi bonds. If they decide that they want to return, they will take the cedi, they will go to the market to buy the dollars or euros that they came with and return to their country, not with cedis, but the foreign currency. And in the last couple of months, you will notice that even though imports have dropped significantly because of coronavirus, our cedi is struggling. The question is, people are not asking for the dollar to buy anything from China, to buy anything from Europe. How come our cedi is under pressure? It's because of the external vulnerability inherent in our debt portfolio. So government only last month had to find close to $500 million to pay for some of these external vulnerabilities. And it is going to get worse because, one, we were making a lot of money from the export of oil. And in fact, our economy was growing essentially on account of oil production in the last 2-3 years. Today, we know that whereas we budgeted to sell a barrel of oil for about $5.8 to a barrel, $58 to a barrel in our budget, the oil now is going for about $25 per barrel. So straight away, we've lost about $38 on the price reduction. And so fields and the rest will now be struggling to raise money on the capital market to come and fund activity that the global economy sees to be risky. Because now, if you gave your money to them to fund the oil production, they are unlikely to generate the appropriate returns to pay you back. So they are already struggling to scale up output. And so the natural consequence is that output of oil in Ghana is going to drop. So you are going to have two challenges. One, your prices are not going to be good, and two, your output is also going to drop. The combined effect is that the oil economy that used to drive our economy upwards will now begin to drive our economy downwards. And the revenues that we budgeted to be spent from oil, particularly our ABFA, would not materialize. And that is going to be a major shock to the economy. The second challenge that we'll be having as a shock to our economy is the fact that Ghana is highly import dependent. But we are also aware that whilst we are import dependent, we also depend on imports of goods and services to generate what we call the international trade taxes, the port duties that we collect and all of that. We estimated a lot of money to be coming from there. Now, immediately with COVID-19, we know that supply chains across the globe have been disrupted. So even if you want to import, you can't get to import. So import volumes are going to drop significantly. What it then means is that the revenue that we're getting from import taxes will drop significantly. The people who were selling these items in Makola and other places and were charging VAT on them won't get them to sell, and so our VAT revenue will drop. And so this is going to be the immediate shock of COVID-19. The other challenge that we are going to find with COVID-19 is that even though our revenues are dropping and we'll be struggling to raise revenue, financing conditions across the globe have tightened. What it means is that it was a situation where we could easily go out there and borrow money to come and fund development. It was easy for us to issue bonds in Ghana on a 91-day bills on a 2-year bond, on a 3-year bond, and in fact go globally to go and borrow a lot of money to make up the shortfall. Global financing conditions as we speak today has tightened. So it is even difficult to borrow money if you want to borrow it. So the challenge then is, how are we going to fund that huge gap that has emerged as a result of COVID-19? Now, on top of this, you are going to have a major problem where your financial sector that used to fund your budget by extending money to you in terms of buying your bonds and giving you treasury bills and all of that, they are also facing a major challenge. As a matter of fact, in the last couple of months, weeks that we were locked down, the banks suddenly saw a surge in electronic payments. In other words, people were sitting in their homes, and by the use of their phones, they were taking their monies from the bank. Having come back from lockdown, economic activities have still slowed. So what we are seeing is that the banks open only for people to go in and take away their savings to go and survive. So they are not getting deposits. They are basically just paying out money every day. And that is a major drain on the banking sector. And once the banking sector will struggle to keep the deposit in their system, they will not have the funds to be able to lend to you and I and the businessmen who need the money to survive. So these are going to be some of the consequences that we expect to emanate from the COVID-19. The other challenge that we will have is whether or not you have a government that is disciplined enough to find innovative ways to deal with this. In a situation, for every business environment, when you have a challenge like this, is to look to your costs. You look to your costs and say, I need to rationalize my costs in order to match the revenues that I'm getting. So a government that is not able to raise the money should immediately be looking at, why do I have 130 something ministers and I don't have the money to fund the activities for which I employed them? I employed them because I expected I was going to raise revenue for them to go out there and build infrastructure and provide services. Unfortunately, I am unable to raise the revenue. So obviously they will be redundant. Is that not it? So you look to cut your expenditure by making sure that you then right size your government. And that has to take a lot of courage for a government in an election year to do. And we think that His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo will look to cut the size of his government in order to fit the challenges that we are facing. The other one you have to look at is, I programmed to do certain activities that have been disrupted. So for instance, today, a lot of our school children are at home. They were being fed by government 3 times a day. Now they are not going to be fed. So that becomes a savings that you must immediately be looking to and to reduce the expenditure. We are almost in the middle of the financial year, and you program to spend about 8.5 billion on capital expenditure. It's obvious it can't happen. It cannot happen because even if you threw all the money at contractors, deliver that volume of work How are we going to fund this? The government, when it went to borrow the $3 billion on the Eurobond market in January, provided Parliament with a schedule of utilization to tell us how they were going to use that money. And in that schedule of utilization, they indicated that they are going to spend about 2 billion of the Eurobond money on free SHS. Now, if your original total cost is 2.4 as listed here, and you go to borrow you go to borrow 2 billion, it means that you have a gap of how much? 400 million. But we noticed that the government also gave us an idea of how it was going to spend our oil money in the budget. And in that oil money, there is an item under page 232, which is breakdown of projected ABFA spending for 2020. ABFA is just an acronym for annual budget funding amount, which is the name we give to the component of our oil money that goes directly into the budget. So that money, under Office of Government Machinery, they say owing to free senior high school program, 1.2, almost 1.3 billion. So clearly you realize that this was over-programmed, because you cannot be running a program for 2.4 billion. You borrow 2 billion to fund the same program, and you borrow 1.3 billion to fund then you take oil money of 1.3 billion to fund the same program. So if you put the oil money of 1.3 together with the Eurobond money of 2 billion, we're actually spending 3.3 billion for an expenditure that should be costing us 2.4 billion. The question is, where is the rest of the money going? Are you seeing the picture here? Where is the rest of the money going? Because you have given us the true cost of your flagship program. And you have indicated, number one, rightly so, that you will need only 2.4 billion to fund your flagship program. You are taking 1.2 or 1.3 billion from our oil money to fund that. We expect you to use the difference. But you now tell us that you are actually borrowing 2 billion to add to that 1.2, 1.3 billion to fund an expenditure of 2.4 billion. It doesn't make sense. Clearly some gerrymandering is happening. You are seeing that. This is not me saying, this is their own document. And so you can see clearly that the item was over budgeted. What were they going to use with the rest of the money? That is a very big question. The other one is that they talk about infrastructure for poverty eradication program. This was supposed to be the $275 million. I don't know how they converted it to get 1 billion. So you can see that close to 700 million of billion of our oil money to fund this. And then they go to borrow money on the Eurobond market and they are saying they are still going to spend the same 1.2 billion to fund the same expenditure. So road infrastructure of 1.2 billion is now being funded with 2.4 billion. Who is taking the additional 1.2 billion? Where do you think it's going? So fortunately, coronavirus, the money is just not even there. So just be kind enough to cut all these wastes and save us money. Now they say planting for, in fact, they say school feeding program. I don't know when school feeding program became a flagship program. This school feeding program that Kufuor fed, Professor Mills fed, John Mahama fed, suddenly is a flagship program. And they are budgeting 470. That has no problem because I'm not seeing it here. But planting for food and jobs, they have programmed 400 million under this appendix, cost of government flagship program, 400 million. Now you come to look at our oil money under food and agriculture. It's getting interesting, right? These people, they don't know that when they are stealing, they are not even smart. Just give me a second, let me fish it out. Okay, so they are not spending anything on planting for food and jobs. So straight away, they are taking all the money from the Eurobond market. So that is all right. But they also mention livelihood empowerment against poverty, LEAP. When did LEAP become a flagship program? But it's Akufo-Addo's flagship program. Now they are struggling to find programs to make up. Microfinance and small, that's Maslock. Is Maslock a flagship program? But it's here. Then one district, one factory, 150 million Ghana cedis. That's approximately 27 million Ghana cedis, dollars. They can't construct a better factory. Can't construct one better factory. And that is what the noise is all about. But they tell us that they are taking the same amount of money from our Eurobond money to fund one district, one factory. Then under Ministry of Trade and Industry, they are still taking 78 million of the oil money to go and fund the same one district, one factory, which has been fully catered for under the Eurobond funds. So like I said, fortunately, the money is not even there, isn't it? So if you intended to steal 78 million, you can no longer steal it. They tell us that railway development, 117 million. Under the Eurobond money, they are taking all the 117 million for railway lines. Then in our oil money, they are still taking 122 million for an expenditure that has been fully catered for under our Eurobond funds. Are you seeing what is happening? I don't know whether you are seeing it, but I'm getting scared myself. They tell us capitalization of new regions, the new regions that they have created. They budgeted 149 million for it here. When they went to borrow the money on the Eurobond market, they said that capitalization of new regions, all the 149 million has been catered for. But we realize that they are still going to take the money from our oil money again. Okay, Ministry of Regional Reorganization and Development, owing to capitalization of new regions, 125 million. For an expenditure that is fully catered for under your Eurobond money, you are still taking 125 million from our oil money. I've never seen thieves like this. And it is so scary. You see, the implication of what I'm doing is not just the stealing, but also the fact that in the end, the true cost of these programs are not properly captured in our budget. So they are capturing these figures and they are not capturing the stolen money. So your deficit will be low. Do you get it? Because when your expenditure is high and you don't have the revenue, you must find the money. So they are understating the expenditure. And in the process, part of it is disappearing from the system and we don't know where that money is going. But I want to make another major comment. You see, Under the flagship program, one of the line items is government communication, 6 million Ghana cedis. Flagship programs, so government communication. Clearly, you know that this is for. It is clear because government communication cannot be flagship program. So this is for what? Serial callers, our money. Fortunately, we are not getting the money. Akufo-Addo, just tell your serial callers to sacrifice and just communicate for you and save this. Now, allowances and nursing together is 400 million Ghana cedis. And here I want people to pay attention. And those of them who are also closer to Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Bawumia should pay attention. Particularly Bawumia and his team should pay attention. Because I heard him recently say that because the economy in 2015-2016 was so weak, we could not pay teacher trainee allowances and nursing trainee allowances. And that the definition of a strong economy is the one that is able to pay teacher trainee allowances and nursing trainee allowance. Is that what it means? 400 million is the definition of the strength of an economy. And I want Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to understand that it is a matter of policy prioritization. So you decide to put the money in teacher training allowances and nursing training allowances, and you have no hospital to show. You have no secondary schools to show. In fact, you have no expansion of potable water to show. You have no 1 kilowatt of power to show. Do you understand? The man who didn't pay this constructed roads. The one who didn't pay 400 million, that weak economy was able to generate. Which one is difficult to do? To spend 400 million on teacher training allowances or to build 74 senior high schools E-blocks? Which of them costs more? Which of them costs more? And in addition to that, build hospitals and over 1,000 chip compounds. And in addition to that, construct what? Roads. This illiterate pedestrian analysis of which economy is strong is unbecoming of a PhD holder. And I'm very worried that anybody will say that an economy that prioritizes infrastructure over teacher training allowances and nursing training allowances is an economy that must be defined as weak. Because if it was not weak, it would have paid teacher training allowances and paid nursing training allowances. And that the economy that paid teacher training allowances and nursing training allowances but could not build schools, could not build hospitals and roads is a stronger economy. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, I wonder where this man learned his economics. Because governance is about prioritization and it's about policy choices. And policy choices are not the basis for defining the strength of an economy. And I feel saddened that unfortunately there are students of economics and finance who listen to him and they admire him. They will go and do this same analysis in class and fail. But 400 million is all that he's talking about. Something that the Muhammad could have done with chicken feet. But he said, it is better for me to prepare the classrooms for you to come and get a place to teach. Because you didn't do this, you have asked the teachers, one, to delay their progress to the classroom by asking them to do national service. Okay? So instead of paying him 1,500 a month for 1 year, you are paying him 500 and keeping his 1,000 to defray this teacher training allowances. After that, you still don't want him to go to the classroom, you delay him another 1 year to come and write licensure exams, and you fail him. This is a dishonest government. And I feel very sad that we are allowing oratory to take over this government instead of competence and delivery. And I wanted Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia from today to refrain from describing the economy in 2016 purely on account of a prioritization from paying consumables to developing infrastructure. And that is what our country needs for the forward march. We wanted to make places available for our nurses to get a place to study. to work when they come home. And we gave them alternative arrangements such that they could still fund their education. So we decided to enroll them on the student trust scheme. That is innovation. So that this money, over a period of 5 years, that is 2 billion Ghana cedis, could have been used to. And Baumia says, when you are not able to pay this, it means your economy is weak. But ladies and gentlemen, it is quite clear that if I was to take a critical look of the entire budget that was presented to us, you will see that the expenditures there are bloated, meant for corruption and to fill pockets in an electioneering year. Covid-19 has told us this election cannot be won with stealing our money. And I just want to advise the managers of this economy to look at the vulnerabilities that our economy faces and be honest enough not to steal the monies that they had programmed to steal. Because you can see the contradictions. The same transaction, you are funding from two sources. The accumulation of the two is more than the expenditure needs. I have never seen that before. You recall that somewhere on the 25th of February 2020, this year, I had an opportunity to speak at the Kanama Conference Center. And at that forum, I had indicated that Ghana's deficit had been cooked. And I showed two areas where they played that game on the people of Ghana. You see, when we were going to borrow the Eurobond money in 2019, we had actually given a program, just like you have given this, and we said 2 billion of that was going to be spent on the budget under our foreign financing. 2 billion, no matter what you translate, their own exchange rate that they used at that time gave us 9.6 billion. But they only said that they only indicated that the Eurobond money was all used to pay debt. Which debt were they used to? Because there was another 1 billion we approved. That's why there were 3 billion. 1 billion for liability management. Liability management simply means pay off your debt. Do you get it? So it couldn't have been used for liability management. So instead of reporting 9.6 billion Ghana cedis as the Eurobond money spent on the budget, they reported 2.2. So 7.4 billion was gone. Do you see? When you add the 7.4 billion there, that's where the IMF caught them. Even Adongo caught them here.
is, did the budget and Eurobond not pass through Parliament? Why are these double budgeting not detected earlier till now? Emmanuel Derry Kusani also sends this one in. Ofori Kwada Sukumasi says, please, my
around the sinking fund per the Public Financial Management Act is that once the money goes, it can only be used to pay debt or debt-related expenditures. So you use it to pay off your public debt. So you would have noticed, if you study Ghana's debt trajectory, that actually in 2015, Ghana's debt to GDP went down because we spent a lot of that money to pay off our debt. Okay? Then, part of it, if it's not going there, it should go into an account that we call the contingency fund, which has a root in our constitution. Our constitution says that the state must have an account called a contingency fund, where monies that are meant to deal with emergencies that we did not anticipate will be spent from. So when we passed the Public Financial Management Act under his leadership of John Dramani Mahama, we made sure that we gave life to that constitutional provision by providing for the contingency fund in the Public Financial Management Act in 2016. So you see, Akufo-Addo is not sharing freebies from his own pocket. He is sharing freebies from the vision and toil of the NDC that set up a fund that accrued $200 million. The rules are that once that happens and you can define an emergency, you can indicate that that emergency was not anticipated, and 3, you did not provide for it in your budget, then you have met the conditions under which you can access that money to deal with the emergency that was anticipated. And all these 3 conditions exist with COVID-19. Are you getting the point? So he takes the money, convert it at about 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. The emergency is COVID-19, right? You don't buy 1 PPE with that money. Which is COVID-19 that we are supposed to use, the emergency we are supposed to deal with is COVID-19. That 1.2 billion, not 1 cedi, is going to a hospital. Not 1 cedi is even buying swabs, what they use to take your samples. Now look at how the money is spent and see whether that is really the anticipation of COVID-19 related expenditure and what we needed to do. So he says, I'm going to spend about 40 million to provide hot meals for people in lockdown areas. I'm going to spend 40 1.3 million to buy dry food for people. That means you buy, maybe you give somebody 1 kilogram bag of rice, something they can cook at home. I've been saying that I never saw that dry rice or dry food being shared, but that was supposed to be given to the Ghana stock, buffer stock for them to buy that food and share. Then he says that out of that money, he's going to subsidize water. Out of that money, he's going to use part of it to pay frontline medical staff. Out of that money, he's going to use part of it to pay for exemption of taxes. Until recently that he came, he said he was going to use that money. Now he has come to collect another exemption. So the money is no more 1.2, it's about 1.48 billion. Then that same money, he says he's using part of it to give out for businesses, 600 million. So you see where he got the money from. So that money is a buffer that was created by a visionary leader. And you saw recently they wanted to deplete even the Heritage Fund. So that is how they are doing the freebies. That's why I asked Baumia the question. The one who created the fund is incompetent. The one who used that money to buy rice for people is competent. You see, the one who created the fund is incompetent. The one who says he's giving 600 million of it to businessmen, we don't even know the character and nature of those businessmen. And we know when these people have always shared things, it has always been to bring your ID card. Is that not it? That man is not competent. So that is how they have had to deal with this matter. If you read the budget, they made a provision of about 44 million under the Ministry of Health infrastructure budget to construct 94 hospitals. And you see, Ghana, we have our own classifications and features of what a regional hospital is. So we have our primary health care, okay? Then we have how a CHIP compound
Adongo. And I'll just pause the messages here and leave the podium for Mr. Pratt.
Welcome, as we are continuing with the discussions, and we are coming back to the studio for audience participation. And we insist that when you come to the podium, please don't spend more than 2 minutes, because there are so many people around the world who want to contribute to this program. If you spend more than 2 minutes, you deny other people the opportunity of making a contribution to this program. So I'd like to see you by hand, and when you come here, you mention your name, and you ask your question or you make your statement. So those of you who want to come and raise the issues, please show by hand, and I can call you. I see a gentleman from behind. I see this gentleman, and then I see my friend from the Convention People's Party who is here with us. So what we're going to do is that we take one from the back, we take you in the white shirt, and we take my comrade and friend from the Convention People's Party. Please, one after the other.
Well, good evening, viewers, and then good evening, fellow comrades here. I have a very short, question as well as a suggestion, if I may. Is it possible that you would consider decoupling the pension from the social security aspects? Because in this pandemic, you realize that most of the debt that will be accumulated is not public. But the measures moving forward that will be used to fight this end up, accumulating more debt on the private citizens. So even when you go and borrow, you end up, imposing more taxes on these private citizens. And as for Baromia, indeed, it has been said that someone who could not clearly look at an expiry date of a product before sharing it in, an epidemic or a pandemic can definitely not understand the data, and so it is better we ignore him. So, comrade, that's my simple question. Thank you.
Good evening, comrades, and good evening to our cherished viewers. I have listened to Honorable Adongo, and I feel that it is about time a government that massages data and lies to the people is classified as useless. I mean, this government is totally useless when it comes to the economy and how it's being run. But there is one thing that I want to ask Honorable Adongo. I learned that there is a threshold where when our deficit hit that threshold, the finance minister is supposed to resign and he is supposed to be arraigned before the courts. So I want to find out our debt level and whether we have not gotten to that place where he will be held before the court. Because looking at the borrowing, the level of borrowing, it seems to me that if we do not put the brakes now, we might end the year with a lot of debt. People, children in their parents' tummies will even be incurring some debt. So if we have gotten there, or if that calculation hasn't
And we said, no, why don't we then try a new formula?
Income of Ghana in nominal values or in CD value at 347 billion Ghana cedis. Then they proceed to say that our debt to GDP is 61.1%. What it means is that if you take that 347 billion and you calculate 61.1% of it, you should get our public debt. Is that not the case? So you see the challenge. For these people, you will never see the true picture. So we are very fortunate that now we can have some numbers for 2018 and 2019 and projections for 2020. Thanks to COVID-19. Now what is worse is that in our revenue management, one of the men that we saw as one of the moral pillars of our country, fortunately was made to go and head the Ghana Revenue Authority as the commissioner, as the chairman, Professor Adai. Those of you who listened to my delivery at Kama, I indicated that I was disappointed that he actually went to church to give thanks to God for meeting a non-existing target. Professor Adai went to church with the entire Ghana Revenue Authority to give thanks to God. In the first place, he issued a statement that they had met their revenue target, which was a lie. He proceeded to even cover our eyes more by now giving thanks to God for meeting a target he didn't meet. And I said I was very, very disappointed. I showed the numbers to show that the man didn't go near meeting his target. He was missing his target by almost 4 billion Ghana cedis. And for such a man to have the guts and the courage to go and thank God, how can you go to God and our pension scheme almost collapsed. The lump sums. Imagine people who were earning almost $10 million a month, a year, sometimes even more, for so many years. The Ishmael Yangsons of this world, and they go on retirement. The Sam Jonas of this world, and they go on retirement. And you find about 4 or 5 of these people go on retirement at the same time. And then they say your best year's salary times 3 years, you are dead. Huh? So we took a decision that we needed to find a way to create sustainable paradigm shift, so that when people like that go on retirement, the SNAP scheme provides just the basic pension. And so we created SNAP scheme as tier 1. We now have tier 2 and tier 3. And these are contributory schemes that are meant to provide the lump sum payments, while SNAP deals with the basic pensions. So we've already done quite a lot of reforms in the area of pensions. The only thing that has not happened is because the culture of contributive pensions has not been part of our life for a long time. Not many companies used to have provident funds, and now that our financial situation got better, we had these challenges with the financial sector. Most of those were also directly affected because they have investment. Only recently you heard Bank of Ghana say don't pay dividends. So if they put their money as shareholders of banks and had shares there, they are not going to get that return that they need to reinvest in readiness for you. So there are some challenges, but obviously it's a lot better than previously. And we just want to encourage a lot of Ghanaians to cultivate the habit of preparing for their pension and making sure that their employers, do the needful. So there's a lot of reforms in the pensions area, and I think that at this point we haven't traveled long enough to say that we need to review it, unless otherwise some obvious challenges come up from those that are managing that scheme, which is regulated by the National Pension Regulatory Authority. We didn't have that, but once we did the reform, we needed to have a supervisory body that will regulate the pension sector. So we've done a lot of that. Fiscal Responsibility Act. It was the baby of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. You know, we already have a Fiscal Responsibility Act. If you read the Public Financial Management Act that NDC passed in 2016 from A to Z, that is one of the best fiscal responsibility laws you find. But Bawumia, instead of just coming to amend 1 or 2 sections in order to incorporate some minor change that he wanted, for political expediency, had to create a whole act that is not even thicker than my finger and called it the Fiscal Responsibility Act. The thrust of the Fiscal Responsibility Act is that we shouldn't do a budget deficit of more than 5%. And in worst case scenario, 5% plus 1, that's about 6%. So technically, from what we have seen, and it is the reason they were giving us interim numbers, because the man was way above the threshold. So 2018, 2019, 7% and 7.5%. You see, the act didn't say 6% on a cash basis. It is 6% of a deficit, and a deficit is defined technically and properly as overall deficit, because you will pay. Whether you treat it above the line, in the middle of the line, or whatever line they call it, you will pay. So once you exceed 7%, the law requires for censorship of the minister. And we have just found this information that he exceeded the limit 2018, 2019. What he came to do technically in Parliament recently was to suspend the rules, because the law also provides that in a situation of emergency such as we find ourselves, you can suspend the fiscal rules in order to deal with the challenges. So he can suspend 2020, but he can't suspend 2019, 2018. And that is why he now boldly can say that we are doing 9.5%, because the technical implication of what he has done is to suspend the fiscal rules. And when His Excellency says that the economy is an intensive care unit and you say no, who suspend fiscal rules for an economy that is healthy? You suspend fiscal rules for an economy that is challenged. An economy that is growing at 1.5%, you say is not. In fact, there has to be a better word than intensive care unit. For an economy that was supposed to grow at 6.8, now grow at 1.5. That is scary. And once the country applied to the IMF to access the rapid credit facility arrangement, we have technically pronounced ourselves as an economy in intensive care unit. Because that money is given to economies in distress. And the economy in distress is so in distress that if the money does not come in, and that we can't even decide that we don't trust you, let's give you small and see how you spend it. No, bring all now, because our situation is so dire. In fact, our stock of resources cannot even last us 3 months, so the money must come now. That is the proper definition of an economy that qualifies for rapid credit facility arrangement. As a matter of fact, it's a social safety net for poor and distressed countries. And we are one. We have declared ourselves as such. The man repeats it, and the man who went and made that application with all the indicators to confirm that you are really in distress is not saying that, why do you say it is in distress? And you say it's untruth. You are unable to say what exactly he said that was untruth. So we have a big challenge with the fiscal responsibility, which has already been trashed. But like I'm saying, he has suspended the fiscal rules technically for the year 2020. And that is why we will do that figure. I think yesterday one other issue came up, and sometimes when we are on a program with people, you don't respond to everything. You need to pick and choose, because we have time to deal with. You need to pick and choose what you want to deal with. But I have in this conversation around the MPP that when we started dealing with this cooked data, that the only time in Ghana that Ghana was charged a fee or a fine for cooking data was in NDC's era. Today, I want to tell the people of Ghana to know the MPP for the dishonest and unpatriotic attitude that they have. When they took power from us in 2001, they wrote to IMF telling IMF that the figures that we gave to IMF were wrong. It's not that IMF came and found anything here. But you see, they were so illiterate that they thought they were reporting NDC, but they didn't know they were reporting Ghana as a corporate entity. IMF doesn't know NDC MPP. IMF knows Ghana. So they say, okay, so the Ghana has falsified documents, Then we will charge you. Now, when the charge was mentioned, they started withdrawing. You see, did you ask NDC whether the figures you were selling, they could defend them or not? You didn't. You decided to play this unpatriotic politics of, maligning NDC. In the end, whether the figures we sent were justified, we have an auditor general who ought to certify our numbers and come to the same conclusion, so you can now report. You submitted documents and you submitted figures that had not been certified by the Auditor General to embarrass Ghana. So we come to power and we decide that we will show these people and end up showing Ghana. So you see these people, where you see them, they don't love Ghana. And you can see the looting shows. You think when we came to power, we were comfortable with everything we found there? It is our responsibility in government to correct the wrongs. And there are legal regimes in Ghana for dealing with infractions on our financial system. And at that time, the the Financial Administration Act was in existence. And there are rules and there are laws in Ghana. So if you believed that a finance minister had done something untoward, why were you not in court of Ghana? But you ended up thinking that there's a difference between NDC and MPP when it comes to Ghana. Ghana is Ghana. So anybody who goes around saying that NDC falsified document, tell that person The unpatriotic MPP people cooked their data in their offices and sent them to IMF thinking they were embarrassing Ghana and ended up embarrassing themselves. Thank you very much.
Well, comrades and viewers, something interesting has been happening since we started this program. I mean, for the first time, our Facebook page has been playing tricks. Off and on, off and on. And indeed, over the last 30, 45 minutes, it's been impossible to access this program on Facebook. We are not too sure what is happening. We've been given all kinds of reasons. One of the reasons we've been given by some technical people is that there may be too many people wanting to watch the program. Whether that is true or not, I don't know. We've also been told that the page may have been hijacked. Whether that is true or not, I don't know. What I know is that there is heavy interference with our Facebook page, and it's been impossible for us to stream effectively over the last 45 minutes. But be that as it may, we are on the digital platform and we are also on satellite. So lots and lots of people are able to hear us and see what we are doing. We'll be investigating what is happening more closely, and we hope to take measures to ensure that next Wednesday when we come here, we'll be able to live stream this program without any disruptions and so on. At this stage, we have just a few minutes to come to the end of the program, and I'm going to suggest that we have Kwame Owusu-Danso up here with a few more messages. This time we'll give him 4 minutes to read messages from all of those who are watching us at home and so on. So 4 minutes for that. And then after that, the convener of the Accra Collective of the Socialist Forum of Ghana is here with us. He's been trying to make a contribution. We'll allow him to make that contribution. And then we'll allow one more person, if there's somebody here who wants to make a contribution. Raise your hand so we can ask you. Well, Mr. David Ato, a news anchor at Pan-African Television, also wants to contribute. So the two of them will contribute, and then we would have the Honorable Isaac Adongo summarize everything in 5 minutes, and then we'll bring the program to a close. Hope that's fine.
Okay, so this time I'm reading this one from our WhatsApp platform. The MPP can't rule. They have people like Tom Grant at the presidency. The wicked old man can't advise himself. How can he advise the president? Okay, right. So this one is from Talensi. BT Sly, well, positive change. Good evening, Pan-African TV. Honorable Isaac Adongo is a role model to millions of Ghanaians, and may he live long. Greetings to Kwesi Pratt. This one is from Mashoud in Gushegu. Positive change in Medina says Akufo-Addo's stays for power could end like former president of Burkina Faso, Blaise Compaoré, the very former president Laurent Gbagbo. You say your regards to Lea Francis Susu. This one is from BT Sly. Says, good evening, KOD, and thank you, Honorable Adongo, for this insightful delivery. The data available to me shows that Bawumia is the first and only vice president who donated expired food to his brothers in Upper West region. That is the data. Ganiyu Fatal from Medina says, Honorable Adongo, well done, very educative, may you live long. This one also says, okay, every wise person in Ghana knows that indeed Bawumia is a failure and incompetent. If the opinion leaders will continue to shield you, nature will expose you. Note that the nature is always fair, unlike men, i.e. the chiefs, pastors, and other opinion leaders. If nature begins to act this way, it means you are indeed a disaster. Peter says this one in from Domi. Good I beg you to stop calling the WhatsApp number so I can read them. Good morning, good evening, Pan African Television. You mean? I'm Alasan Salim Ahmed from Bimbila. Ask. I don't know when you sent this message. Good evening, KOD. The MPP is giving freebies using the free SHS money after no school. But after this pandemic, Ghanaians will now understand and appreciate the real meaning of social interventions. More fire, Honorable Isaac Adongo. This one was sent by Rahman from Takrade. Harvey from Tesano says, that's too harsh on the president. I can't read it, sorry. Good evening, KOD and Pan African TV. Listening to JDM Live and also listening to Honorable Adongo means there's still hope. They are not just exposing the Akufo-Addo and Bawumia lies, but giving us alternatives. What will be Honorable Isaac Adongo's first advice to His Excellency JDM in his first 3 months when elected? Honorable, I don't know if you want to respond to that. Keep it up. Purple Gaddafi sent in this one. It is so sad when we reduce the arguments to NDC and MPP politics. The so-called bipartisan individuals and organizations should speak up. So sad. Prince from Tema sent in this one. This one says, both the NPP and the NDC are the same. None can be trusted. They always appear to speak right when they are in opposition. Pan African TV, you're doing a very good job. Can you involve more media houses to this expose? And also, if possible, translate the conversation into one of the local dialects for the layman's understanding. Furthermore, I would like the Akatamanso to investigate the companies under 1D and 1F. For example, some of the companies listed under the policies were never built by the MPP. 2 of these scams are in Kaswa. Thank you. Thank you too, sir. Can you please read the messages in 2 videos? Okay. Good evening, comrades. My name is Dinah Wood. I'm watching live from Kriapim. I want to find out how COVID-19 is affecting domestic consumption of Ghana as prices of commodities keep increasing every day. Lastly, I want to find out which areas in the economy do you think will require the most attention and innovation post-COVID-19. It's my 4 minutes up. From Atia in Universe, says, Honorable Adongo, your logic is too deep for our Vice President to comprehend. Please make it simple for him next time. Wow. Philippine Techima. Philippine Techima says, please, my advice is that let's not fall for the MPP tricks. Anytime the argument is about infrastructure, the MPP tries very hard to switch it to abstract discussions where they know they can force 5 figures that the MPP know they can't stand the NDC anytime when it comes to social infrastructure. Please, you need Adongo's contacts. I can assure you that is not possible. The Vice President should be ashamed of himself and his handlers for using cook data that has nothing to do with the bread and butter issues from Ghanaians, with Ghanaians. God bless Honorable Adongo. Let me just do a few messages that have been sent to our Facebook live feed. So, Hassan bin Abdallah Folisawi, Honorable Patrick Adongo, Isaac Adongo, may you live long. Kwabena Nketia says, absolutely brilliant. Nana Ajekum Isaac says, okay. Isaac Adongo has made Dr. Bawumia irrelevant and Akili John Kabu says, this man is simple in his analysis. With his analysis, he's made economic analysis understandable for everyone. Thumbs up to him. Honorable Adongo has made Bawumia to bow this evening. In fact, he should write a book and title it, and he calls himself an economist, Dr. Bawumia. Honorable Adongo, you are a working example of economics go high in your political career. Habib Bantu says, when Isaac Adongo speaks, the MPP shakes and runs. Kojo says, work on your network small on social media. My mom is killing it. MPP has no campaign message for 2020 elections. And maybe 2 more messages sent to me by Loretta, and then I'll walk out of here. Joshua Oferi, watching you live from Akim Kukrentumi. Bawumia thinks he's standing on a campaign platform whenever he's delivering. He should act fast and realize he's a vice president. That means Nana wants us to eat, take away, and get infected by COVID-19. With the sharing of food and COVID-19 from Yendi. I know for sure that only when you have no means of survival is when you will go for credit. When your pocket economy, or packet economy, I don't know what you mean, is strong. We'll care less about yara or arms. Abdul from Yendi. Good evening. My name is Combat Tingbin Isa from Bumkurubu. The vice president is an economic comedian. Nope, that's too harsh. Data can be misrepresented. As for reality, Abi, you know, he who knows it feels it. Dr. Baumia, give us a break. Combat again. Economics is Adongo and Adongo is economics. Hero for OT Region Center in this one. This one from Moody's report. The MPP was doing well as a result of IMF reforms Mahama did. So the MPP is enjoying the position rippling effect. My name is Kojoba. Please tell Honorable that I want to join his finance team and learn hands-on experience from him. Please, there's a difference between theory economics and real-life economics. This is evident in the United States financial industry reforms during the credit crunch in 2007-2008, where Henry Paulson, Ben Benek, and Tim worked on to assist the economy. Honorable, please, we printed new currencies, 100, 200, according to the governor. We spent 153 million cedis till date. We don't know the quantum printed. 2, enhancement of our currency security features, new notes and security enhancement notes. Till date, we do not know how much was printed and is in circulation. So I doubt they don't have the money. Baumia is a theory economist and Honorable Adongo is a proper economist. Uncle Kwesi, how can a government which carries out educational reforms for the primary schools for almost 1 year without a textbook for pupils to learn claim the economy is good? Capitation grants are in arrears for 1 good year. The vice president claims the economy is good. God is definitely watching them. This one says, I hope Baumia is watching and listening. I've seen your message, Abdul Rahman in Kumasi, Rahman in Gushegu, and Rahman in the northern region. A lot more messages coming in. Unfortunately, I can't read all of them. So, comrades, I think Mr. Pratt mentioned that there was going to be... Yes, oh, Comrade Bless, all right.
Thank you very much, comrades. Honorable Adongo, it's always nice listening to you. But on the lighter side, economists are not my friends. This is because economists have superintended over a policy of neoliberalism that has caused abject poverty to the majority of working class people from the 1960s. And there's also a way in which we discuss economics as if we have one economics, that if you work on it so well, it will benefit all of us, we'll all live decent lives. I do not think so. I think that we have different economics for different classes of people. And then no matter how you restructure the economy, no matter how you work on it, no matter how you change it, under a broader frame of neoliberalism, you always have social classes. It is also to the effect, just to also say that we are always talking about the economy not performing well. But when I look around, I see that it's performing well for a very few people. No matter how the economy doesn't work well, it works well for almost all the parliamentarians. It works well for the executive. It works well for the judiciary. So economic is not this neutral, homogeneous entity that lies there that can be worked on and shifted to work for all of us. And that is where the broader frame of work that I find difficult dealing with economics. I want to say that COVID-19 has arrived at a moment in which capitalism in itself was under crisis. And we spoke about it multiple times on this platform. So it happens to be a case where the saturation of capitalism has been hit by the pandemic, where you are seeing this dislocation and the suffering of the people that we are looking at. In restructuring the economy, I don't want it to turn back to what it was before the pandemic. It is my hope that COVID-19 gives working class people the opportunity to take the economy into their hands and to turn it into a way that advances. The broader division of those who own the means of production and how that production is redistributed in society to benefit a few people has to be changed. And I think that in the broader frame, that COVID-19 should provide this opportunity for working class people. And I thought I should make this intervention in this platform. Thank you.
using your sanitizers. So you need to sanitize your hands. All right, thank you so much for the opportunity. Honorable, I just want to find out from you, if I heard you right during your submission, you mentioned that government needs to recoup some of its funding allocations that were budgeted for in the 2020 budget. If I heard you right, I may be wrong, for some flagship programs. What I want to find out from you, it's not as if this funding were sitting. I may be wrong. I'm asking, or I'm saying this because we all know the 2020 budget was hinged on oil revenue. As we speak currently, oil prices have dipped between $17 to $21 per barrel, right from $65 per barrel. That means that our oil revenue has come down, and that's the basis on which our economy was based on. Don't you find it a little bit, for me, I think it's a little bit, I don't know, but how can government, recoup or redirect such funding when those monies are not sitting already in the national coffers? I may be wrong, I just want a further clarification. Where would you also project our economy to be post-COVID-19? I'm asking this because you've all been saying that the world, as you all know, it will not be the same again. Already we are talking about global recession. Means of production has reduced. Definitely when you have a lockdown situation, it means that you scale down production because you are not asking people to go out there and produce. So you scale down production, which eventually will affect your local economy. From you as an economist, where do you project economies around the globe, not just Ghana, to be post-COVID-19? I just want to find out. And also your views on the Supreme Court judgment, in the matter between the involving the 2.25 billion euro bond issue involving the Ministry of Finance. The Supreme Court has ruled in favor of the Ministry of Finance. What is your take on the current situation? Thank you.
So I'll just tie this in with my closing remarks. I think first we have to understand on the Supreme Court judgment. I haven't seen the judgment has really not given us the reasons yet. So we will need to get the full ruling of the judge in order to make sense of what informed his judgment. So once we get that, then we can make an informed position. Other than that, a lot of it will be more of sentimental and stuff like that. So I just want to see what really will be the judgment. And once we see it, then we are able, the reasoning behind the judgment, then we can proceed from there. The issue about the oil revenue, I think earlier I had alluded to the fact that not just the fact that we are losing about 66% on the pricing that we originally put into the budget, but we are also having challenges with operators in the oil fields probably having to cut back production. Some of them would have a difficulty raising money even to undertake the development programs that they want to do and the exploration activities that they had planned. So you will find that there will be a lot of some deferral of activity in terms of the oil and hydrocarbon sector. The point I make is that, you see, if those expenditures are still sitting there as programmed under the ABFA and are not taken off, it blows the expenditure. Once it blows the expenditure, trust me, government will find a way to go and borrow to make up that difference. And what we don't want to encourage is a situation where government wants to still find the resources to deliver those same programs. Because once a funding source is truncated, and you still keep the expenditure, chances are that you will find a way to load it onto another funding source. And that funding source could be to jeopardize our deficit situation and could also jeopardize our debt situation. So once you agree that the money just isn't coming and you decide that I want to work with a reasonable budget and a reasonable expenditure, then the motivation to go borrow more money in order to fund that expenditure will be eliminated. And that is the point I make, that Once the monies are not going to come anyway, then they have to scrap them in order that we work with a reasonable expenditure line. I hope you are getting the point I'm making. Yes. Now, the other issue that we need to pay attention, I think you had asked me earlier about what do I see the economy of the world. Of course, there are several, the impact is going to be based on the particular country and the supply chain requirements. And we know that globally, supply chains are going to be completely disrupted. In fact, they are completely disrupted now. And so for countries that are reliant on the supply of the global environment, you need to begin to look inward. And our position as a way of reviving the real sector is to see this as an opportunity to begin to do the things that, but for the comfort of easily accessing the global market we've neglected, we need to begin to look at that. So I foresee a situation where next year, for instance, we would have problems with food. And so that is an opportunity for us this year to encourage a lot of people to go into farming and to expand our farm base. Because, trust me, where we've been buying the rice and all that from, they are not likely to be able to deliver that to us now. And so that is an opportunity for us to spend a lot of money in order to improve local capacity to deliver some of those staples that we'll be eating. And so for me, that poses a big opportunity for a businessman, to begin to look in that direction. If you take manufacturing, our manufacturing sector hasn't been that robust. And I gave the indicators that show that we have actually declined. 2016, we were around 7.5, almost 7.9. We came to 9.5. Now we're around 4%. Now, this is the time to move up. Unfortunately, the challenge is also that some of our manufacturing companies have their supply chain tied to raw materials delivered from abroad. How are we going to be able to ensure that they're able to find those raw materials domestically in order that they still can produce for us? So those are going to be some of the challenges that we need to look at. The service sector completely eliminated today. We only know that now one of the service sector that is a direct beneficiary of this is the telecoms. Everybody now is on the phone. Those of them who would have gone out there, somebody said that you are together, but you are not together. We can sit in this room for a long time and nobody is looking at the other. Everybody is looking at the phone. So how do we use that technological backbone to propel growth going forward? We know that our hospitality industry is no more the same. If people are going to struggle to find food to eat, are they going to go out there and have fun and tour the country, and go and have vacation? So you see that the hospitality industry will take a long time. Are people still going to be able to fly abroad knowing that they've heard horrible stories about what is happening in America and Europe and the rest? Will they feel that it is actually safe to travel out of this country? And yet that is how some would have to bring the livelihood to the people of Ghana. So there are quite a lot of complexities and challenges to do with the entire supply chain and the global economic framework that we need to look at. But I think that going forward, we should seize the opportunity to, one of our fathers used to say domestication, but this is when we need to give true meaning to that. Otherwise, we are going to have challenges with the global disruptions of the supply chain. We're going to have other challenges again. Imagine if Ghana hadn't gone to the market to borrow 3 billion in January. Forget it. There's no way we would have gotten a penny for it now. So that will take some bit of time, to solve it. And so the question then is, how do we find a way to be innovative in managing our costs of running government and ensuring that our revenue generation activities does not stifle the private businessman, but allows the private businessman to grow a bigger, cake, so we can tax from that cake. So we need to look at all these things. But on the side of my brother, who, of course, I think anytime I have come here, that issue, if it's not come up by you, it's come up by Honorable Mr. Pratt about, what exactly should be the focus of economic policy. We do know that the NDC tries to be a midstream between pure capitalism and socialism. And we are aware that in 2013, when His Excellency John Dramani Mahama took over office, he took a deliberate policy position to realign the Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs to take care of social protection. And we didn't have a focus on social protection at the time. And the main focus of bringing social protection was born out of our own economic history. I'm sure some of you from 2000, you would have heard we had an economic program which basically said that we had to do poverty reduction, which was implemented by His Excellency John Ajekun Kufuor. Of course, by the end of the first phase of poverty reduction, we realized that we still had not reduced poverty enough. So we undertook the poverty reduction strategy 2. By the time Professor Mills came, we did research and realized that even though the poverty reduction had brought about some level of growth and improvement in the economy, but the dividends of that development was not properly shared, and that there were still a few people who were generating a lot of the wealth, and the majority of the people were not contributing to economic development and were left behind. So you notice that we consciously put in a program that we call the Ghana Growth and the Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda. It was meant to make sure that as we sustain the growth and development going forward, that growth and development was properly shared. And we did shared growth and development agenda 1 and 2. We still realize that no matter what you do, there are still people who cannot, by virtue of their circumstances, participate in economic. And when we say participate, it means they are either unemployed, they are not able to earn income in any way, and need to be supported to come out of that situation, to join the majority of the people so they can also be economically active. And His Excellency John Dramani Mahama decided to then bring in social protection as a key driver of identifying the poor and the vulnerable, and to bring them into mainstream economic activity. So we just didn't put social protection as part of women and children affairs just because of the word, but it was informed by historical antecedents in our economic journey. Of course, we still realize that some of our people are still not able to meet up to the challenges. And I do believe that you can trust the NDC when we come. We will find a way to refocus social protection.
Well, comrades and friends, we'd like to thank you very much for coming and participating in this very lively discussion about the economic impact on COVID-19. We thank you very much for coming, and we do hope that from time to time you will join this discussion, this very lively discussion. On behalf of Pan-African Television and also on behalf of the Socialist Forum of Ghana, we also like to thank the Honorable Isaac Adongo, Member of Parliament for Bolgatanga Central, for finding the time to come here. We want to thank him especially for coming here at a very, very short notice. As a matter of fact, we called him only this morning, mid-morning, and he readily agreed to come and help us lead this discussion. We are most grateful to you, Honorable Member of Parliament, and we do hope that you'll be coming from time to time to help us understand the issues that confront us. And for those of you at home, we thank you especially for turning your dial onto Pan-African Television. And please keep it there. Keep it there all the time, because we bring you the best in everything. Best in news, best in sports, best in entertainment, best in everything. So keep your dial on Pan-African Television. Let's have this partnership, which we do hope will lead to a better understanding of the things that happen in Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana. Thank you all very much, and see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Stone boy again, you know. I gotta say this to the people of the world, you know. Sometimes we have to take a look at things from a different perspective. Seen? Yeah. Oh. afro? What about some skirt to cover up the ass though? Better show the reality behind the scenes. What about some dreadlock? What about some rasta? What about believing in yourself and not a pasta? Don't you forget the struggle of race is free. I'm losing